Oh, baby. Welcome back to another fun, fantastic, entertaining, and energetic episode of OC and TJ. It's your boy, Colin OC, with another episode. We are heading into week 10 of the NFL season. Week 9 has come and gone, and if you thought the drama and fun stopped then, oh, baby, we have a long way to go since we're heading into November. A lot of excitement that took place, a few coaching changes that took place, and most importantly, a lot of trades. So we're going to definitely get into a lot of that stuff in just a few moments. But for now, let's jump into the previews here, starting with Thursday Night Football between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Baltimore Ravens. This is going to be in Baltimore tomorrow night. It's the second meeting between these two teams, and this is going to be a fun rematch because the last time that these two teams played against each other, you saw Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow have dynamic performances. Lamar had over 330 and 4 touchdowns. Joe Burrow threw for close to 405. But a lot of self-inflicted mistakes cost Cincinnati in the end. Derrick Henry had a huge run in overtime, and Justin Tucker made the walk-off field goal to win at 41-38. So heading into Baltimore, the circumstances are still going to stay the same. Baltimore is trying to play for the division lead, while the Cincinnati Bengals are trying to fight for their playoff lives at this point. You know, Cincinnati's 4-5. If they win here, they're 5-5, and they're right back in the race. And if Baltimore loses, then they could definitely fall a couple games behind to the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are somehow only 6-2, with Russell Wilson making his third start heading into this week. So let's break down both of these teams. They're coming off of big wins. Let's start with the Baltimore Ravens. They are coming off a 41-10 blowout victory against the Denver Broncos. And to be quite honest, it was definitely one of their biggest statement wins of the season because against the top 10 defense, like the Denver Broncos, Lamar Jackson had a perfect passer rating, while Zay Flowers and Derrick Henry were able to run for over 100 yards and score 2 touchdowns each. So, honestly, I was not expecting them to come out guns a-blazing and for them to have the dynamic and dominating performance that they did. But when it comes to the Denver Broncos, I said that the one thing that they could not do was turn the ball over. And on Bo Nix's first pass attempt of the game, the receiver drops the ball and it gets intercepted. And it pretty much went off the rails from there. You know, the Ravens defense actually showed up for once. They handled their business. Near the end of the first half, they definitely let it get a little close. They gave up a reverse pass touchdown on 4th and goal, and then gave up a field goal to make it a one-score game. But since then, they shut the Broncos down in the second half. They sacked Bo Nix 4 times. And the only player that really had any type of impact whatsoever was Courtland Sutton. The Broncos tried to go for it on 4th down 5 times. They only succeeded on once, which was that trick play touchdown near the end of the second quarter. And, the Ravens pretty much ran through the Broncos through there from that point on. So they are feeling good about themselves heading into this Thursday night game. And so do the Cincinnati Bengals because they finally won a game at home. I know, it's a miracle. Trey Hendrickson was an absolute game wrecker on defense. The Bengals had 5 sacks. 4 of them came from Trey Hendrickson. But, other than that, he was pretty much single-handedly wrecking the game on defense. It was one of the biggest reasons why the Raiders were completely shut down after the opening drive. And even though Desmond Ridder had 2 garbage time touchdown drives in which he took over for Gardner Minshew because he got benched, the effort was pretty much too little too late at that point. Cincinnati took care of business on their pen. Joe Burrow threw 5 touchdown passes. Chase Brown had 27 carries for 120 yards. And Mike Gesicki reached the 100-yard mark on just 5 catches. So, it's not their most convincing victory, but at home, when you know that you need this win badly to keep your playoff window alive and to make sure that you don't let this season fall apart, I think that this was more than a capable victory. And you know what? They actually acquired Khalil Herbert at the deadline because they lost Zach Moss because of a neck injury. So, you know what? The offense is getting a little more speed. They're starting to get better at the right time. And once they get T. Higgins back, I think that things are finally going to start to click. Now, will they actually make the playoffs? I'm not sure because they have a tough stretch ahead. They still have to play Pittsburgh twice. They got to play the Ravens tomorrow night. But if they can win at least 2 games in their division, at least 2, then I think they'd have a chance. I have to look at the rest of the schedule to figure out who they have to go up against throughout the rest of the way. But right now, the odds are looking good. But heading into tomorrow night, this is going to be a huge make or break game, really for both teams. Because even though Baltimore is guaranteed to make the playoffs, we don't know what seed they're going to make it as. They could be the number 1 or the number 2. They could probably be a wild card team because Pittsburgh is just, riding high at the perfect time. And no pun intended, because we all know what Russell Wilson's famous line was at his Broncos press conference. But the point is, I think that M&T Bank Stadium, I think the Baltimore Ravens will win. Usually when they're at full strength, when both teams are at full strength, the Ravens usually have their number. It doesn't matter how close the score is or how bad it is. We all know what we can expect from Lamar Jackson or Derrick Henry on a given night. And while Joe Burrow can do everything he can to keep his team alive in the game, if he's playing keep up and if he's forced to play from behind and to tie the score, then they are going to be in a lot of trouble, because Baltimore is going to do whatever it takes to shut Trey Hendrickson down and attack that secondary. And once you shut Trey Hendrickson down, then the rest of the offense is opened up, because you finally have the time in the pocket to dissect where you want to go with the football. And if the Bengals can't run it, then they have nobody else besides Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. So I'll say the Ravens win. I think it can be close. I'm not saying it's going to be like what it was the last time when they played at Paycor Stadium, but I think Lamar Jackson will show up in the clutch. Once again, I'll say they win 31-23. Okie dokie. And I don't think, actually, the Ravens did make a trade at the deadline. They got Tre'Davious White for a few mid-round picks. I personally don't know how huge of an impact that will be, because Tre'Davious White has not done well with the Rams. He's coming off 2 season-ending knee injuries in the last 3 years. And I don't really think he's needed as a number 1 corner, because you've got Marlon Humphrey coming back from injury. Same thing with Nate Wiggins. He's more reliable as your number 2. If not him, then it's Brandon Stephens. I feel that Tre'Davious White is pretty much going to be more of a depth option at this point. And I mean, it's a good return for the Rams, because, you got a lot of draft picks coming your way. So I think they won the trade more than Baltimore did. But if you ask me to give it a grade, I would probably give it a C+. Because I get it. You need secondary depth. You need to make sure you have insurance for when Humphrey and Wiggins come back. But I don't know. I'm just not the biggest fan of that move. But speaking of not being the biggest fan of things, let's get into this Germany game between the New Jersey Giants and the Carolina Panthers. Ugh. Oof, oof, oof. Well, this is not going to be fun to watch. I mean, we dreaded this game from the moment it was announced. We knew these two teams were going to be absolutely garbage, but one of them is actually coming off a win. The Carolina Panthers actually beat the New Orleans Saints at home. I mean, let's put this in perspective. Just think about this for a second. Let me pull up my notes here, because I don't want to miss anything. The Saints had close to 430 total yards of offense. They picked up 25 first downs. They held the ball for 34 minutes. They didn't turn the ball over. Alvin Kamara had 215 total yards from scrimmage. Bryce Young threw 171 yards with the pick, yet Carolina still won. I mean, it's unbelievable. The best guess that I can come up with for why the Saints lost is because they vastly and hideously played down to their competition. They committed 10 penalties for 109 yards. I mean, Kamara was their only source of offense. The Panthers had 3 go-ahead touchdown drives, one of them that put them up ahead by 1 before the 2-minute warning. And when it was time for Derek Carr to close the deal and win the game, he had a 4th and 4 with 5 yards. He had a 4th and 5, at the 46-yard line, at his own 46-yard line, and he chucked the deep pass to the sideline that fell incomplete. Now, I want to give the Panthers their credit, because they made the most out of their opportunities. They showed that they were not a doormat, and they made the Saints feel that tension and feel that pressure, unlike them succumbing to it. So I will give Carolina their due benefit, but at the same time, these are the freaking Panthers that we're talking about, and the Saints completely collapsed and unfolded. I mean, I get that Chris Olave suffered a concussion in the first quarter, his second one in the last 3 weeks, I want to say. But the point is, they should not have let this game, fall apart from their very hands. And I mean, Carolina, for once, actually took advantage of it, and they got their second win of their season. They're matched their win total from last week. And heading into this Germany game, they actually have a chance to pull off something even more hilarious because the Giants are not in that much better of a situation. Now, Daniel Jones finally scored a touchdown at MetLife Stadium, which is flat out divine intervention. We finally got it done. But in the first half, it looked like it was going to be an expected blowout. You know, they had one great drive. It was a 16 play possession that took over 10 minutes off the clock. They ran the ball down Washington's throats. But on the second drive of the game, Daniel Jones got strip sacked by Dante Fowler, and that allowed the offense to rattle off 21 points and take a 14-point lead heading into the break. When the third quarter started, the Giants' offense was on fire. They had 3 possessions. They scored on all 3 of them. But the problem was Washington never let the Giants have any breathing room when they got the ball back. Now, they might not have reached the end zone in the second half, but they kicked 2 field goals to increase their lead by double digits. And when it was time for them to put the game away, Olamide Zaccheaus was wide open on the left side of the formation for 42 yards, and Chris Rodriguez got the first down that ran the clock out. So while they definitely should have made this a bigger blowout than what it was, they at least did enough to hold on for the win. I actually thought it was going to be a lot. I thought it would have been closer. Let me pull this up. Let me see what I had for the score here because I knew it was a little closer than what people had. Oh, no, I didn't. Never mind. I said it was going to be 30-13, and it ended up being 27-22. All right, sue me. I was definitely wrong there, but I honestly did not expect the Giants to actually show up for once at home, especially in the second half when Daniel Jones did more than enough possible to try to get his team back, but the effort was too little too late. So am I going to have fun watching this game? 9. But, you know, I kind of have to at this point, right? So, I mean, I'll pick the Giants for now because they technically have the better team. They have more playmakers on their defense, and Daniel Jones is not completely garbage, but, I mean, this is going to be if it's not a boring blowout, then it's going to be a boring defensive struggle because unless Daniel Jones dials the clock back to his rookie year and throws 5 touchdown passes, then I don't know I don't know how we're going to be entertained watching this game. So I'll pick the Giants. I'll say they win. Let's see. Ooh. I'll say they win 21-17. All right, I'll be nice here because I'm in a good mood. I'll say that the Giants win 21-17, but I wouldn't be shocked if this was like 3-0 or 10-7. You know what? Yeah, let's go with 10-7. You know what? Or 10-6 when the Patriots lost to the Colts last year. Same score. Why not? I mean, the fans in Germany deserve a lot better, but what can you do? All right. Now we get to the Chiefs versus the Broncos in Arrowhead Stadium. Already talked about the Broncos. They pretty much got schooled. They got the message from Baltimore that there were levels to greatness and that they were nothing more than a fraudulent pretender. But the Kansas City Chiefs, they're still undefeated. They won another close game, but their game on Monday Night Football, that was probably the first time that I finally saw the back-to-back Super Bowl champions. Obviously, it was another close game, but they showed their resilience, they showed their fortitude, and they actually showed their toughness in the biggest moments. It wasn't like they let this team hang around for too long and, you know, dominate the time of possession or dominate the total yardage. No, both teams were respected heading into this matchup, and the Chiefs were just a better team, plain and simple. I mean, Mahomes was phenomenal. He had 3 touchdown passes, over 290 yards. DeAndre Hopkins caught all 8 of his targets and 2 touchdowns. Travis Kelce had an outstanding game. He had 14 receptions for 100 yards. And Kareem Hunt scored the game-winning touchdown in overtime with to cap off a 100-yard performance on 27 carries. So I honestly can't fault the Chiefs at all. And while the defense did give up the game-winning or give up the game-tying touchdown to set it in overtime, there were plenty of moments where they came up with critical stops to give their offense the ball back and to make sure that they didn't fall behind by double digits. Bucs were 5 for 11 on third down. They only gave up 200 passing yards. They held the 2 best running backs on the field, Rachaad White and Bucky Irving, to 43 yards. And, they never let the game get away from them. When it was time for them to get a stop, to give their offense the ball back, to set up a game-tying drive or a game-leading drive, they did it. They made sure that they handled their business. And when I saw Baker Mayfield throw his head up after he found out he lost the coin toss, I think we all knew it was game over, because we all know Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in football right now. He's built for moments like these. Even against a garbage Tampa Bay defense in overtime, we know that he's going to do whatever it takes to get the job done. And I'm not going to go on a hot take and say, oh, if he wins a third championship in a row, he's going to eclipse Tom Brady. I am never going to concede to that point. First of all, Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes will never be the GOAT over Tom Brady. As much as I love and respect him, he is not on that level yet, or he will never be. But that's a different subject for another day, because I don't really want to go off topic there. Heading into this game, I think the Chiefs should win. I think both defenses are going to play well. We know what happened the last time that these two teams played against each other. It was when Mahomes battled the flu. They didn't reach the end zone. They turned the ball over 5 times. And even though the defense sacked Russell Wilson 6 times, they still gave up 3 touchdown passes. Obviously, the team the Broncos have is a lot different now than what it was last year. One of the best players from that game last year was Baron Browning, and he just got traded to the Cardinals. So that's already one missing piece. You don't have Justin Simmons on that team. Patrick Surtain, yeah, he's great. He's an elite corner, but against DeAndre Hopkins, when he's finally adjusted to this Chiefs offense, we'll see. I think it's going to be scrappy and close early on. There's probably going to be a lot of false hope where you're thinking, oh my gosh, Denver could actually win. But, listen, as long as Patrick Mahomes is fully healthy, I'm not going to bet against him. I'll say they win pretty convincingly down the stretch. I'll say they do it 27-10. As impressive as the Broncos defense has been, we just saw them give up a perfect passer rating to Lamar Jackson. What do you think is going to happen when when they have to go up against Patrick Mahomes in the loudest stadium, mind you? And Bo Nix is essentially asked to carry your team to a win. I just don't see that formula succeeding. I just really don't. If this was in Mile High, I might have a different opinion about it, but I'm just gonna lay off of that for now. Now we get to the Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Washington Commanders. Steelers are coming off of a bye. The Washington Commanders, I just brought up, they're coming off a tight victory against the Giants. I'm just gonna head straight into it. I actually think the Steelers are gonna win this game, and the reason why I think the Steelers will win is because of one simple aspect to this game. I think when you look at both of these teams, obviously Jaden Daniels has been one of the hottest rookies in the league, and Russell Wilson has gotten off to a great start. Obviously, his 2 wins have come against the 2 disasters that were at MetLife Stadium, but when he's on the field, you can tell that the offense is more aggressive, the defense plays with a lot more energy, and they're still able to run the ball as well as they did with Justin Fields when he was under center. But the problem is the Steelers have the 4th best rushing defense in the league, while the Washington Commanders have the 4th worst rushing defense in the National Football League. Both of them can run the ball extremely well. They're both top 10 in that category, but it's going to come down to the trenches. It's some technique, but it's also about your desire and your will and your passion and your want to get the job done. So I understand that the Washington Commanders are at home and that they want to widen the gap in the NFC East lead. But I think that, listen, Washington's defense, they've definitely been up and down this year. One minute they look like one of the most improved units in the league, and then the next they definitely look like they need to get a lot more work done, to say the least. Pittsburgh, on the other hand, offensively, they've been pretty solid for the most part. Obviously, they're not a top 5 or top 10 unit, but they hold on to the football. They don't make any mistakes. They play complementary football, and they pretty much just use old school tactics to get the job done. Aggressive defense, minimal turnovers, enough points on the board, gets you the job done. So I'll say the Steelers win in a pretty close one, but I think that, the offense will be able to pull away down the stretch. Again, it just comes down to that running game, and I think it'll eventually wear out the Commanders' defense in the second half. And if Jaden Daniels can't carry the team with his arm, then that's going to be a huge problem. So I'll say the Steelers win. I'll say they win 28-17. Okie dokie. And I almost forgot. If the Commanders do have a chance of winning this game, then they could quite possibly thank their newest acquisition, Marshawn Lattimore, all-pro corner, finally traded away from the New Orleans Saints. And apparently, he really wanted to go to Washington. Would you imagine that? The Washington Commanders being a destination franchise after the gobs amount of BS that they've had to go through over the past 20 years and counting. So, Marshawn Lattimore, he is a big win for this football team. Obviously, he's got a lot more mileage on him since he's had a lot of NFL experience. But one of the things that I had a lot of concerns about, heading into this season for the Washington Commanders was their lack of depth in the secondary. And while it's held up for the most part this year, I definitely said one of the things that I said was that they needed a number one corner to make sure that things stayed intact and that things did not get out of hand. And now that they got Marshawn Lattimore at a critical part of the season when they're in first place in the NFC East, I think that it's going to make their defense even better. They're not so bad against the pass. They're pretty decent against the run. Their pass rush has its moments for the most part, has its moments here and there. But I think when you get Marshawn Lattimore into that secondary, I think it's just going to create more opportunities for the other younger guys on the team. And, we'll see what happens. I think Dan Quinn is ecstatic. And I think Marshawn Lattimore is going to reciprocate the feeling. So that could definitely be a big win. But I think, it's going to be the first week. So it'll take some time. I'll still go with my prediction that the Steelers will win. But, I think Marshawn Lattimore is a great get. And also, the Steelers made a couple big moves at the deadline, too. They were able to acquire Mike Williams and Preston Smith. So you've got a reliable veteran pass rusher on the defensive front. A little bit of a steep cap hit over the next 2 years, but still reliable that can show up whenever he's on the field. And Mike Williams just looking to get an opportunity because obviously it did not work out with Aaron Rodgers. They made the move for Devontae Adams for a reason. And now that he's in Pittsburgh behind George Pickens, he's going to be right back to where he was in LA. A heavy possession guy, someone that can stretch the field, incredible athleticism and verticality. And he's going to have a lot more confidence from Russell Wilson than he ever did from Aaron Rodgers. So I think it's a win-win situation for both teams. Obviously, the Jets just didn't have a role for him for whatever reason, just like they did last year with Dalvin Cook. But, I think both teams did extremely well at the deadline. So I'm sorry that I completely forgot about that for a second, but we can move on to the next game here between the Minnesota Vikings and the Jacksonville Jaguars. So this will be the first time that Cam Robinson will be back in Jacksonville in 2 weeks because, remember, the Jaguars actually traded Cam Robinson to Minnesota after the Vikings found out that Christian Darrisaw was going to be out for the rest of the season with a torn I'm sorry about that. I think the internet went a little bit staticky for just a second. I got like a freaking loop on my StreamYard, but it's whatever. No, actually, no, never mind. Yeah, Cam Robinson was probably the only acquisition that both of these teams made. So you get my point there. Unfortunately, I think this is probably going to be a mismatch. The Jaguars are coming off a pretty heartbreaking loss to the Eagles. They were down 22-0 in the third quarter, and Philadelphia literally did everything they could to be like, here you go. We don't want to win because they didn't kick the extra point on 3 of their touchdowns. Saquon fumbled the ball, and it was recovered for a touchdown by Trayvon Walker. They tried to go for it on 4th and 1 at the 25-yard line, and that fell incomplete, along with another previous 4th down early in the first half. Doug Peterson tried to go for it on 4th and 1 at their own 39-yard line, and even with the missed field goal from Jake Elliott, it was still not enough because Trevor Lawrence threw the game-losing interception into Kobe Dean. Saquon Barkley was a human highlight reel. Devontae Smith had an amazing one-handed touchdown catch in the fourth quarter. And without A.J. Brown in the second half, Jalen Hurts was still able to have a 230-yard performance with a couple touchdown passes and 0 turnovers. So Obviously, Jacksonville knew what type of situation they were headed in. They were gifted plenty of chances to steal this game and for us to laugh at Nick Sirianni even more. But once again, they completely failed to get the job done, and that's a big reason why they're 2-7. The Vikings, they had a pretty up and down performance as well. Sam Darnold had 3 turnovers, 2 picks, and a lost fumble that was recovered for a touchdown. They were down 7-0 at halftime because of that defensive touchdown. But, Darnold was able to regain his composure. He threw 3 second-half touchdown passes, and the defense played spectacular. They held Jonathan Taylor to 47 yards on 13 carries. They allowed Joe Flacco to throw for just 179 yards, and they forced 2 turnovers on their own. And they didn't give up a touchdown. They only gave up 2 field goals. And to be quite honest, if it weren't for those Darnold turnovers, then the score would have been a lot worse, and it would have been a bigger blowout. So, honestly, I don't really see much of a matchup here. I could see this as a close game early on because, both quarterbacks are decent, but the Vikings just have a more dynamic offense. They have a better defense, and more importantly, the Vikings have a way better coach than the Philadelphia Eagles do. So the one thing that Minnesota will not do is let this game fall apart or choke away a big lead, unless Sam Darnold somehow sees ghosts again. So I'll say the Vikings win pretty handedly, 30-13. And I'll leave it at that. Next up, we got the New Orleans Saints versus the Atlanta Falcons. I'll start with Atlanta because they're coming off a pretty solid win against the Dallas Cowboys. I honestly saw more as a Dallas defeat than I saw with an Atlanta victory because the Cowboys literally gifted Atlanta so many chances to put the game away. And the Falcons did their job. They made the most out of their opportunities. Let's put this in perspective. They're up 7-3. Carl Lawson comes up with a huge strip sack on Kirk Cousins to give Dallas the ball back. They were able to get into Atlanta territory, but they faced a 4th and 1. They decided to go for it to keep the drive alive, but instead of running a traditional play, they run a jet sweep with CeeDee Lamb. And then a few plays later, Atlanta decides to go for it on 4th down, but not only does the play call work, Darnell Mooney gets wide open down the sideline for a 37-yard touchdown, and they're up 14-3. Start of the 3rd quarter, Cowboys try to fake a punt at their own 38-yard line. Not too long after that, Atlanta scores. They go up 21-10. And eventually in the 4th quarter, they go up 27-13. Dak Prescott is ruled out for the rest of the game because of a hamstring injury. And, the game was pretty much decided. I get that Cooper Rush had a huge touchdown drive in the 4th quarter, but, it was in garbage time. The effort was too little too late. And it honestly just felt like a depressing game to watch. Because while Atlanta did everything in their power and made the most out of their opportunities to get this win, Kirk Cousins was phenomenal. Bijan Robinson played well. And they didn't even have Drake London in the 2nd half. That was the most impressive part to me because I really thought that without him, they were going to have to go through a one-dimensional game plan. And I didn't know if that was going to work or not. But Dallas was completely unprepared, and they looked lifeless. They flat out quit. The play calling was atrocious. Their defense couldn't line up properly. And, when Dak and CD got hurt, it just felt like game over. But I'm going to stick with the Falcons. I think that they did everything. They deserve a lot of credit. They were clearly the better team. And heading into this road game against the New Orleans Saints, they have all the momentum on their side because New Orleans didn't just lose their 7th straight game, but they just lost to the Carolina Panthers on the road 23-22, in which they had 425 yards of offense, 25 first downs, no turnovers, and 34 minutes time of possession. Chris Olave got knocked out in the 1st quarter. Michael Thomas went on a freaking Twitter rant about Derek Carr, even though he's not even on the damn team anymore. You got Cameron Jordan apologizing to the fans of to the Saints fans because he knew that they expected better. And the final straw was there for Dennis Allen. He lost his job, and Darren Rizzi is now the interim head coach. So let me get into Dennis Allen here. I don't like it when human beings lose their jobs. I really don't because, we're all human beings, and they have families to provide for every day, and you have to feel some compassion and empathy for them because, listen, I've been in that situation a few times before, and it's not a great feeling. And But at the same time, I mean, this is a production-based business, and if you're not getting the wins, and if you're not showing the intangibles or the accountability that it takes to be a champion and to be a winner in this league, you're not going to last very long. The minute that he got promoted, I did not think it was going to work out because it didn't work with him when he was the head coach of the Raiders from 2012 to 2014, and he completely flamed out once again with the New Orleans Saints. And the common denominator is unfortunately that Derek Carr was his starting quarterback when he got fired. Now, Dennis Allen is a great coordinator, but he is not a head coach. He's not a leader. He doesn't hold the offense to the same standard that to the same standard as his defense. And clearly, there's too much friction and there's too much tension. And the owners decided that enough is enough. They had to make this change now before things fell off an even bigger cliff. Now, let me get to Derek Carr. I think he can help a team win a lot of games. He's more than proven to be a starting quarterback in this league, but he's not the guy that is going to lift you into a championship contender. We knew it was an overpayment when he got the $40 million contract extension. And when we saw him struggle, nobody was surprised. Like, we knew who he was when he got his contract. He had one great year as an NFL starter, and that was in 2016 when he had an MVP caliber season before he unfortunately broke his leg. And since then, his career has been full of inconsistencies. You know, one week he's having an outstanding performance in which he's, you know, doing whatever it takes to win, and the next he's frustrating. He's just frustrating to watch. You know, he's only throwing for barely over 200 yards. You've got a couple turnovers in the mix where you're like, what the heck is he doing? And Michael Thomas is somewhat validated when he said that Derek Carr was a big reason why Michael Thomas doesn't have a job right now. It's because, you know, he just didn't really see anything in him that made you think, wow, this is the guy that's really going to take us back to the playoffs and that's really going to help us out in the long run. And I love Derek Carr. He's a tremendous human being, but at the same time, I think his days of a starting quarterback are numbered. And this head coaching change needed to get made, but their season is pretty much over at this point. This is their 7th straight loss. After they beat the Dallas Cowboys in week 2, I thought, okay, they actually could be a surprise team. And since then, they have completely fallen down the tubes. And I don't even know how much of a shot they're going to have against Atlanta. Could I see an upset taking place? Yeah, but I don't think it will. I'll say the Falcons win, you know, pretty convincingly, 30-13. Because you don't have Dennis Ritter, you don't have Arthur Smith, and you actually have a winning culture. The Saints, on the other hand, are falling off the rails. And if they don't figure something out sooner than later, then Derek Carr could hit the bench. And we might see Spencer Rattler or Jay Kaner for the rest of the year. I'm not wishing that, but we could see it happen, you know, based on recent history. We saw that with Russell Wilson. We saw that with Derek Carr a couple years ago with the Raiders. We saw it with, you know, Matt Ryan with the Indianapolis Colts in his final year in the league. And, I mean, we could see it happen once again in New Orleans. And I hate saying that. I hate when teams do that. But, again, it's a business. And these decisions have to be made for them to even have a future. So, I'm going to leave it at that. Let's go to the next game here between the San Francisco 49ers and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'll give Tampa a lot of credit. They put up a good fight. They sacked Mahomes 4 times in the first 35 minutes. Baker Mayfield led the game-tying drive in the final seconds. But, I mean, their defense is trash. Their offense is injured. And, honestly, I felt that they should have gone for 2 at the end of the game. But you could have said that Antoine Winfield should have had back-to-back interceptions on the final drive to give their offense a shot. So, honestly, they're just not a good football team right now. They're 4-5. After starting the season 3-1 as one of the best teams in the league. They couldn't really run the ball. They were 5 for 11 on third down. Their defense got freaking gashed by Patrick Mahomes. And while they did whatever it took to stay alive in the game, they had a chance to pull ahead in the third quarter, but they just stalled out of the worst possible moments. The 49ers, they're coming off of a bye week. They're getting plenty of rest. They got in plenty of rest. They're getting Christian McCaffrey back. And unfortunately for Tampa, I do not see this as an upset victory. I think the 49ers will win. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think Baker Mayfield is going to do whatever it takes to keep his team alive in the game, because without his two top receivers, he still threw for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns, including the one that tied the game against the Chiefs. So we know what Baker Mayfield can do when he doesn't turn the ball over. But, the 49ers have way too much firepower on their offense. And defensively, I think they have enough guys to keep Baker Mayfield in check and to make sure that Brock Purdy, has enough time to put them in position to win the game. So give me the 49ers 27-14. And I really hope to God that I'm right about this score, because, I've seen it happen before, and in other games that I predicted. Sorry, I didn't mean to stammer there, but I've seen this happen in other games that I predicted before, and I'm hoping to God that I'm right about this one, because I feel like it's just predictable from both teams at this point. Next up, we got the Indianapolis Colts versus the Buffalo Bills. India's coming off a deflating Sunday night defeat to the Minnesota Vikings. Their offense could have scored a touchdown. Their defense did whatever it took to win with 4 sacks and 3 turnovers, but they eventually tired out by giving up 3 touchdown passes. Buffalo, on the other hand, they are coming off a down-to-the-wire victory against the Miami Dolphins. At the start of the third quarter, you could easily make the argument that the Bills were going to lose. They were down 10-6 at halftime. Their defense gave up 2 scores on the first 3 drives, and Josh Allen only put up 6 points with an interception and no touchdowns. And Miami got the ball to start the third quarter. They were moving the ball extremely well. They were in position to put it away and pull ahead by double digits. But on the third play of the second half, right on cue, Raheem Mostert fumbles the football. The Bills recover it. And while Miami did whatever it took to get points on the board on their final 3 possessions, so did the Bills. The Dolphins were playing to tie the game. The Bills were playing to win. And that fumble completely cost them. Josh Allen played extremely well. 235 yards, 3 touchdown passes. The interception was not his fault. It was a complete drop by Keon Coleman. Anytime he had the ball in the second half, he was on fire. And it took a 61-yard field goal from Tyler Bass to win the game. And I was really happy for him, because he struggled all year. They brought in a veteran kicker on the practice squad to give him a competition, to finally get his confidence back, to finally give him some edge. And even though he missed an extra point earlier on in this game, he made the most important kick of them all to keep Buffalo's division hopes alive and for them to remain as the second best team in the AFC. So defensively, they still have issues, at least when it comes to their depth and when it comes to, their structure. But I think when you're going up against a Dolphins team that is absolutely unstoppable when Tua Tagovailoa is on the field, then, I don't know if there's any shame in there whatsoever. But I think this will be a more relaxing game for Buffalo. I'll still say they win. It's going to be a lower scoring game than you think early on. But as long as you have Josh Allen, I think they'll make enough plays to pull away early on, or pull away down the stretch, I should say. Buffalo has gotten off to a lot of slow starts. So that's why I wouldn't be shocked if the Colts somehow take like a 6-0 lead early on. But again, the minute that Buffalo makes their adjustments, it's going to be a completely different ball game. So give me the Bills 27-13. All right. Now we have the New England Patriots versus the Chicago Bears. Oh, boy. Well, which game should I start with? Because both of them are coming off pretty ugly defeats. I'll start with my team. I'll go with the Patriots. Yeah, this was not fun to watch. Right away, they got smacked in the mouth on defense with an opening touchdown drive. The offense, they moved the ball decently in a field goal range, but Joey Sly missed a 53-yard field goal. Drake May turned the ball over twice in regulation. That allowed the Titans to take a 17-10 lead heading into the fourth quarter. And while New England did have a lead, they were never in position to put it away or pull ahead or, force any key takeaways besides a Jelani Tavai interception near the end of the first half. But on the final drive of the fourth quarter, I was blown away because Drake May was literally the only reason why they even had a shot of winning. He went boom, boom, boom down the field in 70 yards. He had 95 yards with his legs, 200 with his arm, And with 4 seconds left, he made the play of the day by scrambling around in the pocket for 15 seconds, avoiding 3 sacks, and then throwing the ball into the end zone while falling down to the ground, only for Ramondre Stevenson to catch it in the end zone for the tying touchdown. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, if we actually win the coin toss, we're going to win this game. But unfortunately, Tennessee did. Tony Pollard jammed the ball down New England's throats. He was able to run for over 100 yards on 28 carries. They moved all the way inside the 10-yard line. And the only reason why that drive didn't even end with a touchdown is because Mason Rudolph bobbled the snap on 3rd down. So Nick Folk, of all kickers, never Nick freaking Folk, the nickname that I used to call him before he was incredibly clutch from 2020 to 2022, made the go-ahead field goal to win it 20-17. And then 4 plays later, Drake May threw a horrible interception into double coverage to Amani Hooker. So anytime you have expectations for the Patriots, don't think they'll win. If you have no hope for them whatsoever, they're probably going to pull off a surprising upset. They made Mason Rudolph look like Joe Burrow. They made Tony Pollard look like Derrick Henry. And more importantly, they made the Titans defense look like the freaking 85 Bears. Because Drake May turned the ball over 3 times. They couldn't run the ball. Drake May was really the only reason why they even had a shot, because he has no line or receivers that can properly catch a football, besides that fluke touchdown to Ramondre near the end of the game. And, heading into this game against the Chicago Bears, I want to see my team pull off a hilarious upset, but, the Bears have a Pro Bowl roster compared to the one that the Patriots have. But Chicago is coming off a pretty horrific loss to the Arizona Cardinals. 29-9 in a game where Kyler Murray threw for 154 yards and got sacked 3 times. But you can make the argument that he didn't even need to do anything, because Arizona ran for 213 yards on the ground and all 3 of their touchdowns. That included a 100-yard performance from James Conner and a 53-yard touchdown run from Amari DeMercado near the end of the first half with 4 seconds left. I don't know how in the world the Bears gave that up. I don't know what the hell allowed them to completely break down and for that coverage to completely fall apart. But that wasn't even the worst part about that game. The offense didn't score a single touchdown the entire game. They were shut down in the entire second half. Caleb Williams got sacked 6 times. And to top it all off, Matt Eberflus decided to play Caleb Williams on a garbage time drive down 20, only for his quarterback to tweak his ankle and to get helped off the sideline. And when I saw him say that, we just needed him to get the work in and for him to get the reps, I'm paraphrasing because I don't have the direct quote in front of me, but it's somewhere around the block. I said, oh my goodness, this is going to cost Matt Eberflus's job, and it's going to cost Shane Waldron his job. But I saw something on this FS1 show, and he said it better than I ever could. If they somehow let go of Matt Eberflus and Shane Waldron at the end of the year, this is going to be the 3rd time that the Bears have done this to a rookie quarterback in the last 7 seasons, where you fire your head coach and your offensive coordinator and you replace them in the 2nd year for your rookie quarterback. They did this with Mitchell Trubisky in 2017 and 18 with John Fox and Matt Nagy. They did it a few years later with Justin Fields when they transitioned from Nagy to Eberflus, and they could possibly do the same thing with Caleb Williams, who was supposed to be the savior and the final piece and the missing piece that would finally rid the narrative that Chicago was a quarterback hellhole. Now, we're literally heading into the same traps. And the McCaskies have not learned a single damn thing. They don't really make the decisions that are supposed to help you win football games. And this is why agents tell their players, don't go to Chicago, or tell their quarterbacks rather, because it's pretty much a death sentence anytime you sign a contract there. Mitchell Trubisky and Justin Fields, they were early draft picks, and they only lasted 3 seasons with them because they completely flamed out, and the teams did not do anything to help them out in the long run. This was literally supposed to be the year where all of that turned around. You signed DeAndre Swift. You got Keenan Allen. You drafted Rome Odunze. You got the quarterback you needed. You drafted your offensive. You got the offensive lineman you needed to keeping them in the pocket. You have the defense that is supposed to lift you into a wild card contender at best. And now you're 4-4. You're at an uneven 4-4. And if you don't figure it out sooner than later, then not only are those guys going to get out of jobs, but Ryan Poles is going to be on very thin ice heading into 2025. And I hate saying that because, again, I don't like seeing guys lose their jobs. But we all know just how much of a trigger the McCaskies have. Like, ever since George Halas died, they, God rest his soul, they have not been on the right track. 1985, they win a Super Bowl, but it was with the guys that George Halas handpicked by himself. And since then, they have not done anything to show that they are worthy of being a championship contender. I'm sorry. They just have not. I know they had a 14-2 season in 1986, and they went to the Super Bowl in 2006, and then a conference championship in 2010, but those were one-year blimps, and they were never able to recover after those seasons. I'm sorry. But having said all of this, I think the Bears should win. I don't know how they can lose since they're at home and they're in Soldier Field, but, I mean, anytime I think the Patriots have a chance, they completely lose. So you know what? I'm just going to go with my gut. I'll go with the Bears. They have a way better defense. Their offense has a lot more talent. And the Patriots, even though they have a good quarterback, he has no help around him to succeed. So that's just the bottom line. Give me the Bears 24-10. And if they somehow lose, then you can pretty much get rid of any sort of playoff hopes that they have left. Out the window. Bye-bye. Okay. Now we get to the Chargers versus the Titans. Pretty much broke down what happened in Tennessee. Let's talk about the Chargers here because they are coming off a 27-10 victory against the Cleveland Browns. Defense played outstanding. They sacked Jameis Winston 6 times. They picked him off 3 times, which reminded us all why the Tampa Bay Buccaneers moved on from him at the end of the 2019 season. But really, I was more impressed with how their offense played. I understand that Herbert took a beating in the first half. He got sacked 6 times as well. 3 of them from the reigning Defensive Player of the Year, Myles Garrett. But that did not stop him from having a perfect pass rating in the first half. Like, that was probably the most impressive performance of the night, and that was what allowed them to have a 20-3 lead at halftime. But in the second half, I felt that if Jameis Winston didn't turn the ball over, Cleveland might have had a chance of coming back. Because look at the numbers here when you talk about the second half and the Chargers offense. I'm pulling up my notes here. If you were to tell me that they were going to have 3 first downs, they were going to go 0 for 5 on third down, and that they would only pick up 86 yards, I would say, holy crap, the Browns might have a shot. But not only did the interceptions hurt them in the long run, but they gave up a blocked field goal, and that allowed the Chargers to pull away with a 27-3 lead. And eventually the Browns scored a touchdown in literal garbage time. So the Browns are literally right back to where they were square one. I truly thought that they could have at least figured out how to right the ship. Because if Joe Flacco did it last year, I don't know why Jameis Winston wouldn't be able to, as a former number 1 overall pick. But, they have too many deficiencies. They have too many weaknesses. And, Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry are going to have a lot of long conversations to figure out where they need to go. Because if they bring the same team back and trot it out one last time in 2025, both of them are going to be out of jobs. And I don't want to see that happen because they've done everything they could to put this franchise back on the map. But we know the Haslam family. We know that earlier on in their ownership tenure, they were not afraid to let head coaches and general managers walk out the door. So I'm going to leave it at that. I think the Chargers will win this one. They know how to beat up vastly inferior teams. The Titans are just flat out garbage. The only thing they only had to win in that game against the Patriots was a lower draft pick. I'll give them credit. Their defense forced 3 turnovers and their offense was slightly more efficient. But, against a 2-win Patriots team, it's like, oh my gosh, wow. I'm so freaking impressed, and I'm being sarcastic, honestly. But I'll go with the Chargers. I'll say they win 30-3. And I probably could be wrong. It'll most likely be a lower score, but yeah, I'm not really looking forward to this one because the Chargers don't really do that well against legitimate competition. But they have a great defense. They have Justin Herbert. The formula for Jim Harbaugh has worked for the most part. They play great defense. They run the ball well, and they minimize mistakes. And against teams like the Tennessee Titans, I think that's going to be enough to get the job done. So, yeah, let's move on to the Eagles versus the Cowboys. Cooper Rush versus Jalen Hurts, baby. I mean, I don't really need to break down both of these games because I already did in the past. The Eagles are literally a likable head coach away from being a Super Bowl contender, and the Cowboys, their season has pretty much come to an end. I understand that Micah Parsons is going to come back from injury, but Dak Prescott is out. CeeDee Lamb, he's a game-time decision because he's playing on AC joint sprain. Ezekiel Elliott got benched because he missed several practices, so we don't even know if he's going to play, this home game against Philadelphia. And their defense sucks. Their offense, they can't run the football. And when you lose Dak Prescott, it's just like, how worse can it get? Obviously, we've seen Cooper Rush's sample size. He's not terrible. He's not great either. But that's just been the Cowboys this season. In their wins, they were okay against garbage teams. But when it came to the teams that mattered, they looked lifeless. They flat out quit. And it looks like they don't even want to be there. And heading into this game in Philadelphia, I don't know, or against Philadelphia, I should say, I don't know if they have another shot of winning this game. Now, Jalen Hurts has not won a road game against the Cowboys in his career. And the last time that Dallas beat Philadelphia at home was in 2017. It was 33-9. It was the year, or 36-9. It was somewhere around the block. But the point is, it was the year the Eagles won the Super Bowl. It was when they ran the ball at will. The defense picked off Dak Prescott 3 times. And it was the year that Ezekiel Elliott got suspended for 6 games and missed that one because of that. So, honestly, I think this is finally the year where the Eagles break that cold streak. Saquon Barkley is flat out unbelievable. He's my vote for Offensive Player of the Year. He's been absolutely phenomenal. If you saw that 14-yard run where he broke a tackle, spun past another, and then reverse hurdled a final one, that should just tell you enough how much of an impact he has on this Eagles offense. Like, they didn't have A.J. Brown in the second half. Devontae Smith, he was pretty good for the most part, but if they didn't have Saquon Barkley, they would not have been able to hold on the way that they did because Sirianni literally did everything they could to lose, as well as that defense, because they were the ones that gave up a lot of huge plays down the stretch to the freaking Jaguars of all teams. But I think this is the get-right game for the Eagles. I think they're going to take out a lot of their pent-up aggression against a team that has just flat-out bullied them at Jerry World for the last 7 years now. And I don't know if it's going to be a big blowout, but as long as they don't get in the wrong way and as long as Nick Sirianni does not screw this up, they're going to be in great shape. They have a well-improved defense. They have so much talent on their offense. And Jalen Hurts has played a lot better since the bye week. So I got to give a lot of credit where it's due. So I'll say the Eagles get it done 34-10. I know it's a blowout score, but that's where my heart is at this point, or where my gut is. You get the point. Next up, we got the New Jersey Jets versus the Arizona Cardinals. I know I shouldn't have said New Jersey because they actually won a game, but you're 3-6. I would not be happy about it. I will give them credit, though. After an abysmal first half in which Aaron Rodgers only completed 7 of 14 passes for 32 yards and Malachi Corley fumbled the ball on a wide-open touchdown into the end zone for a touchback, they played a lot better in the second half. And obviously, some of that could be attributed to the fact that Will Anderson was hurt. But at the same time, if you look at the second half numbers, they are flat out an anomaly compared to how they played all season. Aaron Rodgers completed, let me pull these up. Aaron Rodgers in the second half completed 15 of 18 passes for 179 yards with 3 touchdown passes. He finished the game 22 of 32 for 211 yards with 3 touchdowns, no picks. Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson combined for 16 of those catches for 181 yards and all 3 of those scores. And Garrett Wilson gave us the highlight of the night with the Air Jordan touchdown catch in which his shin was enough for the refs to give him the score. The defense was just as dominant. C.J. Stroud only completed 11 of 30 passes for the game. He was 4 of 14 in the second half. They sacked him 8 times. And I get that Nico Collins and Stephon Diggs were out, but I think we had expected for this type of performance from them all season long, where they look shaky, they look sloppy, they don't do enough they haven't done anything to pull away or to dominate, and they barely win by the skin of their teeth. And in this one, it did not bail them out. They had a 7-0 lead early on, but besides Tank Dell and Joe Mixon, there was nobody else that made any type of impact on the game whatsoever. So, and the Cardinals are coming off a pretty impressive win against the Bears. 213 rushing yards, 6 sacks on defense. They have a lot of momentum, and they're in first place in the NFC West. Who in the world could have imagined that? I think the Cardinals are going to win. I think it'll be really close because if there's one thing that you cannot do against this Cardinals team, it's turn the ball over or give them any late opportunities or any free chances whatsoever, because that's going to be more than enough for the offense to run through the table or to run through the game on fire while the defense makes enough plays to hold on down the stretch. Obviously, I wouldn't be too surprised if Aaron Rodgers had a vintage MVP performance or the types of games that we used to see in the past, since Arizona's defense does not have too much talent on it. But at the same time, it's like they have been frustrating to watch all year long. And I think Arizona is the type of team that knows how to take advantage of bad, sloppy, poor, and undisciplined football. So give me the Cardinals 28 to 20. 28 to 20. Yeah. All right, now we have Sunday Night Football between the Texans and the Detroit Lions. So I already talked about the Texans. Offense was a flat-out abysmal. They didn't have Nico Collins. They didn't have Stephon Diggs. C.J. Stroud got sacked 8 times, 11 of 30 passing. Defense gave up 3 straight touchdown drives to Aaron Rodgers, along with Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams. They're debuting the red jerseys against the Detroit Lions, who are just flat-out unbelievable this year. I mean, they beat the Green Bay Packers 24-14 in horrible weather conditions at Lambeau Field, but it felt like they were playing at Ford Field, like they were playing on their own terms. Jared Goff didn't really throw that ball that much, but he only had 4 incompletions. They ran the ball extremely well. And more importantly, I mean, they were not intimidated or phased whatsoever. They did not make any mistakes whatsoever. They dominated the time of possession. And really, most importantly, I think you got to give a lot of credit to their defense, because that Packers team looked incredibly sloppy and undisciplined, and it looked like they didn't even know how to play in those types of conditions. Jordan Love dropped a bunch of snaps. The receivers couldn't hold on to a lot of catches. Brandon McManus missed his first kick as a Packer. They committed 10 penalties for 69 yards, and the only touchdown that they scored was a garbage time. I mean, the minute that I saw Kirby Joseph come up with a pick 6 at the end of the first half, I just knew that this was not going to be a fun game for the Green Bay Packers here. The Lions offense didn't really need to do too much to win this game. And honestly, more importantly, it's Brian Branch getting ejected. That did not face the Lions either, because while that was a big loss, they still did everything in their power to keep this Packers offense bottled up and to make sure that they didn't have any momentum whatsoever in this game. So, yeah, I think that the Lions are going to win. From a historical perspective, I would probably say no, because the Texans have not lost a game to the Lions since they re-entered the league. But I think that certain trends are going to have to end at some point. The Texans offense is still really banged up, and Jared Goff has been absolutely on fire. He's on pace to have an MVP caliber year, and the defense has played absolutely unbelievable. I mean, they've lost Aiden Hutchinson 2-3 weeks ago, and they're still giving up, and they're still a top 10 scoring defense in the league. We've seen this type of start before where they got out to a hot start early on, but then fizzle out down the stretch. But now that they traded for Zadarius Smith to give them some pass rush help, I think that they are the most what's the right way to say it? They are the most dominant team in the NFC. They're the biggest threat to the Chiefs' three-peat hopes. And honestly, I don't know who else in the NFC can beat them. I thought it could be Green Bay, but we saw what happened on Sunday. Minnesota couldn't get it done. San Francisco, possibly. Same thing with Washington, but we've yet to see what they could do against one another, whether it's on the road or whether it's in Detroit. So I'll say the Lions win here pretty handedly, if you ask me. I'll say they win 35-10. Next up, and last but not least, I'm sorry, I probably should have started off with the latter. Let's go to Monday Night Football between the Miami Dolphins and the Los Angeles Rams. Obviously, we already talked about what happened with the Dolphins. They came off a heartbreaking defeat to the Buffalo Bills on the road. It's the 7th straight loss to them since 2016, 7th or 8th. Actually, no. Let's see. 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So this is the 8th. My apologies. But you get the point. That lost fumble from Raheem Mostert in the third quarter, it really cost them it really cost their chances of winning, because after taking a 10-6 lead at halftime, you got the ball to start the third quarter. That turnover happens. Your offense is still great, but so is the Bills' offense. And they made more than enough plays to win the game. They were just a better team, and they had the ball in their hands in the final minutes, which that fumble completely robbed Miami of. So, I mean, I already got into that. Let's talk about the Los Angeles Rams, though, because they are coming off a down-on-the-wire victory against the Seattle Seahawks. It went exactly the way that I thought it would. I said they were going to get out to a slow start early on, but they would pick it up and pull away down the stretch. But nobody expected the type of ending that we were going to get. I'll start from the beginning just to provide some context and clarity. They were now 13-3 at halftime. Their defense gave up 2 huge touchdown passes to Tyler Lockett and Jackson Smith-Njigba. And their defense gave up just 3 points and forced Matthew Stafford to throw an interception. And the worst part about it for LA was that Puka Nacua got ejected for throwing a punch. So you lost your, I mean, some could say your best receiver. Others would say your second. But the point is, without him, your offense, you don't know how much momentum you're going to have throughout the rest of the game. But to start the third quarter, the Rams got back on track. They scored 10 points on their first 2 drives, but they fizzled out through the rest of regulation. They only picked up 29 more yards, and they didn't score any more points offensively. But thankfully, their defense played out of their minds. Geno Smith threw 3 interceptions in regulation. 2 of them were in the second half, and 1 of them was a pick 6 by Cameron Kitchens from 103 yards. The Rams defense also sacked him 5 times. And with a 20-13 lead with 2 minutes to go, all LA needed to do was get 1 final stop. But Geno Smith, to his credit, his toughness paid off, and he delivered in the clutch. 2 deep shots to Cody White and Jackson Smith-Njigba got them inside the 15-yard line. And right then and there, he connected with JSN for the game-tying touchdown, which is flat-out unbelievable and absurd, because I had no expectations for Seattle to pull off any sort of comeback. But 10 more minutes were going to be played. The game headed into overtime, and we were in for one hell of a spectacle, because the Seahawks won the coin toss and got the ball to start the overtime period. It didn't take too long for them to easily move down the field and get all the way into the Rams territory. Excuse me. But Mike McDonald had a huge decision to make. 4th and 1 at the LA 25-yard line. You could kick the field goal, go up 23-20, allow your defense to get the game-saving stop, or you could extend the drive, go for it, and increase your chances of scoring a touchdown. Mike McDonald went with the latter, and on a handoff to Kenneth Walker up the gut, the Rams defense stops them in their tracks, and they force a turnover on downs. Now, in hindsight, I don't know how much different the game would have played out if Seattle had taken the points, but their odds would have been better. They actually had the lead. If they get a stop, they win the game. So I'll leave it at that. But when Matthew Stafford got the ball, game over. He took 3 deep shots, and the final one was the game-winning touchdown pass to DeMarcus Robinson from 39 yards out. Again, he attempted 3 deep passes. All of them were complete. The final one won the game for the Los Angeles Rams. So the defense played out of their minds. The offense showed up in the clutch, and they made the most out of their opportunities. Now they're back to 4-4. Their playoff hopes are officially reignited, and there's no doubt that they could easily sneak in as a fifth or sixth seed. I'm not going to be like Dan Orlovsky and say that they're a Super Bowl contender, but they're scrappy, they're feisty, and just like the Arizona Cardinals, they are not going to quit without a fight. But heading into this game, I don't know. I've had a really tough time picking this one. Dolphins have not lost to the Rams in close to 25 years, and Miami is 2-6, but at the same time, both defenses are not really good right now. You know, Miami's defense, since Tua's been back, has been torched in the last 2 second halves. And the Rams, you know, give them credit. They played absolutely unbelievable with 7 sacks and 3 picks. But they did let the game go to overtime. And we know that they've had plenty of moments where they got completely torched on the field. We saw what happened against the Lions week 1, then the Cardinals week 2, and even against the Bears in week 4. So I think that they are playing with a lot of pressure heading into this Monday night game. And I don't know. It's going to be really close. I think both offenses are going to look exciting. I am really intrigued to see how both quarterbacks are going to play. But it's going to take one turnover to completely shift the momentum. I'll pick LA for now because they're at home and I like their defense a lot better. But I am not going to be surprised one bit if the Dolphins pull off this upset because we know what Tua is capable of when he's fully healthy, along with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and the elite running back tandem of Mostert and Devon Achane. But yeah, I like LA's offense to be more efficient and more calculated and more precise. And the defense, again, I just think they're going to make enough plays. So give me the Rams here 34-31. That wraps it up for the picks. Let me see if I'm missing any other games or any other news. I think I got through all the games, but I did want to get into one last part, and that was the Raiders firing offensive coordinator Luke Getsy. So after their 41-24 defeat to the Cincinnati Bengals, not only did Gardner Minshew get benched for Desmond Ridder, but the offensive coordinator, along with a couple other assistants, were let go as well. Again, I hate when people lose their jobs, especially NFL coaches, because they have families to provide for every day. But at the same time, I don't think Luke Getsy was anywhere qualified to be an offensive coordinator. The only reason why he even got the job with the Bears in the first place was because he was the passing game coordinator in 2021 for the Green Bay Packers when they had Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams. This was Rodgers' 4th MVP year, and this was when Adams, was his favorite buddy and was his favorite target. And if it didn't work with Justin Fields, what did Mark Davis think was going to happen with Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell or even Desmond Ridder or whoever else they freaking throw into the mix? He'll probably get another job in some type of capacity. I'm not going to judge the fact that the Raiders brought in Norv Turner and Scott Turner and Joe Linehan because their season is pretty much over. Antonio Pierce, he has not gotten this team on the right track. Excuse me. And the offense, they can't run the football. They don't have any other impactful receivers besides Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers because they traded away Devontae Adams. Defense is Max Crosby or bust, and they've taken a lot of steps back. And now you don't even have a quarterback, and you don't have a reliable offense that's going to get you the job done. And as I think about it more and more, I think to myself, what if the Raiders had kept Rich Bisaccia instead of Josh McDaniels? And I came up with the conclusion that nothing would have changed. I think in 2021 or 2022, I should say, when Josh McDaniels took the job, if Rich Bisaccia was the permanent head coach, they would be in the same situation that they're in right now. And it would not do the team any good no matter what. They're heading into the bye week now. They need this time to recuperate, to recover, to rest, to get some energy back because, to be quite honest, I don't even know when they're going to get another win. They're capable of stealing a couple more, maybe 3, but at the same time, they're competing for a top 5 draft pick. And honestly, I don't know where they go because we've seen the track record of Mark Davis or Al Davis letting go of several head coaches in the last 20 years, along with their general managers. The quarterback situation has been just as ugly as it's been in Carolina. And I mean, they're already in a stacked division and a loaded AFC. And if they don't make any big moves that is going to set the course for the future, that it's finally going to, put them in a higher status than they've been in years prior, then all they're going to be is just an average at best team that will not be bad enough to compete for a top draft pick. Bottom line. But thank you all so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe for additional content. And leave a comment down below. Who do you think is going to win? How did your team perform? And what do you think of the trades that were made this past week? Because there were a lot of them, and some of them were pretty fun and pretty intriguing. There were some that really caught my eye, and there were others that were like, I did not think that he was available or that teams were interested. So let me know what you think down below. We'll see you next week, and hope you have a great rest of your night, everybody. Peace, love y'all, and good night.